Well, in the span of 1 year, I have made 2 videos that have aged like milk. Today's Nintendo Direct was indeed something. And maybe I should have posted that new updated Metroid summoning circle of mine. And today we got gameplay of Metroid Prime 4 7 years after the game was first revealed. Honestly, I look like a buffoon, but at this point, I'm kind of used to it. So there's a couple of things that I do want to talk about, but also I want to make an addendum to my past video. I wasn't saying that Metroid was considered a adopted, disowned child of Nintendo, because really it isn't. Or at least in Japan it is. A lot of the points that I did make in my last video talked about how Nintendo of Japan really doesn't care about Metroid the same way that other countries, especially in America, respects and cares for this series. So if anyone's gonna take anything Metroid related to heart, it's gonna be us. But that being said, I am gonna keep the video up. I have no plans of deleting it because there are, in my opinion, some pretty good points that I do bring up. Now, as for the presentation, this time, I think Nintendo did their homework and how they should reveal Metroid content in these directs. This time around, they decided to reveal Prime 4 at the end of the direct, not anywhere in the middle like they did with Dread. Another thing that I liked was that Takahashi did not teeter off into Metroid Prime 4. Think back to the E3 2021 presentation. Before talking about Metroid Dread, Takahashi explains that Metroid Prime 4 was still in development, followed by Metroid Dread's reveal. There were many opportunities for that to happen in this direct. Donkey Kong Country Returns was a game made by Retro Studios, and that could lead into a Prime 4 reveal, or the fact that Zero Mission is now on the Game Boy Advance Online app would also potentially lead into Prime 4. I'm glad that Nintendo did show a restraint, and it allowed Prime 4 to be a genuine surprise. Although, in the back of my mind subconsciously, I kinda had a feeling that Prime 4 was gonna be shown in this direct. Speaking of Zero Mission being on GBA Online, so too was Four Swords, which is kind of a big deal because Four Swords has never been released, and the single-player anniversary version for the DSiWare was immediately taken down for a limited time event. So having that show up on the online app is a smart decision. But not only that, I also liked how Four Swords was in the same method of Echoes of Wisdom. For both Zero Mission and Four Swords, these games are subconsciously reminding the audiences that they could play the older titles of Zelda and Metroid while waiting for the new one. And like I said in my last video, if Nintendo is ever gonna release a brand new Zelda game, you bet your ass that Aonuma is gonna talk about it. Because of course he is. It's technically his child at this point. Oh, and also, I kinda had a feeling that Zero Mission would eventually show up on the GBA Online app. I mean, it's Zero Mission. How could it not be there? Which also means that we have both Zelda and Metroid GBA titles on the app. I guess you could say that things are starting to become a lot more fair and balanced, which is exactly how it should be. Now, there is one major concern that a lot of people outside of the Metroid fanbase, and even inside, may have. We only have the first and now fourth Metroid Prime titles, and because these games are very tight together with their story and continuity, what will that mean for Metroid Prime 2 and 3, and even Hunters? So I'm speculating that before Metroid Prime 4 comes out, we will be getting a port of Prime 2 and 3. However, they will not be remastered like the first game. Instead, they're going to be the trilogy ports from the Wii. And this is very similar to that of the Pikmin series. Right before Pikmin 4 was released, I'm assuming we did get the Wii versions of Pikmin 1 and 2, with Pikmin 3 getting a deluxe edition sometime after the Switch was initially released. And the reason why I don't think 2 and 3 are going to get a remastered treatment is because these games are going to be coming out so soon from Metroid Prime 4, I don't think Nintendo or Retro would want to use more of their assets to re-release these games. And if we are going to be bringing back Metroid Prime 2 and 3, I'm also somewhat optimistic of a Metroid Prime handheld collection. with Metroid Prime Hunters, Federation Force, and even Pinball added there as well, since all of these games were in the DS family. Additionally, most of these games do have online functions, especially for Federation Force because you can't play online with that game anymore, but also it is almost vital to play Federation Force online since it makes the game somewhat less bad. And even Hunters had its own fun multiplayer mode. And if Pinball is in this hypothetical collection, I could see there being leaderboards for each pinball stage. If there's one criticism that I do have, is that I see a lot of people upset that Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out next year and not this year. But honestly, I think that us Metroid fans have been spoiled the past few times. Metroid Dread was not only revealed at an E3 presentation, but was released that same year. Metroid Prime Remastered was shadow dropped the day the Direct came out, so I feel like the expectations of Metroid Prime 4 coming out the same year as it's revealed is a little way too high. But that leads into my final point that I want to bring up. The gameplay trailer looks good. I would say it looks too good. Too good to be put on the Switch. This leading credence to my speculation that Metroid Prime 4 will not only be released on the Switch, but will be a launch title for the next console generation. Very similar to that of Breath of the Wild, and to an extent, Twilight Princess, where both of these games were announced for one console generation, but were released way too late in its life cycle that it was also playable for the next generation consoles. And if my speculations are true, I think this is a perfect opportunity for the game to have that one big game on the next big console. Like Nintendo said, this Direct didn't talk about the successor to the Switch, so it is more than likely that the Switch successor will be discussed either in the next Direct, presumably in September, or sometime early next year, and Metroid Prime 4 would be right on its doorstep. Overall, I could see a turnaround by Nintendo treating the Metroid series with the recognition that it deserves. The series is nearly 40 years old, so I think it deserves that title and achievements that it has had over the past few years, especially recently, where you could consider the Metroid franchise to be an award-winning series. Sure, not major awards like Game of the Year, but more smaller awards, such as Best Handheld Title and Best Action Game respectively. And with Metroid Prime 4, I could potentially see it as Game of the Year material. It's too soon to call it, but it could be a nominee. Metroid Dread was one. But with that being said, I just hope this game is good. We've been waiting 7 years for anything with this game. I mean, look at Bayonetta 3. We waited, what, 5 years for that game to come out, and when it did, it was terrible? Okay, it wasn't terrible, the gameplay was still fine, but Jesus fucking Christ, that story. So I'm just hoping that 7 years will hopefully not overhype this game's release if it doesn't do as well. Although considering Retro Studios' track record, these guys have never disappointed me once, so I shouldn't doubt them. But that said, if you liked the video and my personal thoughts, please consider leaving a like. And also, please consider subscribing to the channel because I am close to getting that 1K subscriber achievement, and I feel like I can make a somewhat good and interesting video off of it. Also, please let me know what you think about this type of video. Usually, I'm not one that makes a video almost immediately after current events, so this is all kind of rushed and off the cuff. So comment on if you want to see more of these types of videos. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go play Metroid Zero Mission again, and hopefully I could use the footage from my Switch to be used for this video. With that, I'm AJ, and ultimately, now that the Nintendo Trio has 2 major titles on the Switch, Zelda's Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Mario's Odyssey and Wonder, and now with Metroid's Dread and Prime 4 Beyond, a wise man once said, "The galaxy is at peace."